Login and registration to the Firebase authentication service is very easy. Just we need to call one method and that's it. And to do that, let's go to the auth service file, and now we will create a new function or method, and that will be a static, and that method will return maybe a boolean for now, and I will explain why we should return a boolean. And the method name should be login admin, and we will pass the email and password that we will retrieve from the text form fields. So that will be password, and let me put an asynchronous or async keyword before the function body. And now we'll use this auth reference to call a special method called sign in with email and password. So let's call await and auth dot sign in with email and password, and all we need to do is to provide the email and password, and that's it. And if everything goes right, that means if the email is right, if the password is right, then this method will return a credential object. So let's receive this credential. So final credential equals await, and inside this credential object we get the useful necessary information like credential dot, we get the user object, and inside the user object we get the display name, we get the email address, whether the email is verified or not, whether this user is anonymous or not, and other metadata, for example the creation time, the user creation time, last sign-in time, and etc and etc. But for now I will just return whether this user is null or not, or maybe not equals null or not. So that will be not equals, sorry, not equals null. So I have to return from here. So if it returns true, then we will assume that the login is successful, and if it returns false, actually it will never return false, because if something occurs, some error occurs by while signing in with this email address and password, an exception will be thrown. So if anything goes wrong, the exception will be thrown, will never be on this line, or this function will never return something. We will, and also we will catch the exception in our login page whenever we call this method, and we will call this method inside a try catch block so that we can catch the exception. So let's now use this login admin method to our login page. Let's go to the authenticate method over here. So inside the authenticate method, let me first of all let me call the from key and current state, and call the validate method to make sure that the text form field, these two form fields are not empty. And if this is not empty, or these are not empty, then we should provide easy loading, or the loading dialog that should say please wait, because now we'll check the authentication status, or we'll check the credential to the Firebase service. It will take some time, and to do that, let's go to the main.dart file, and maybe we should provide a builder to our material dot router constructor, and from the builder we will just call the easyloading.init function. And now let's go back to the login page, and from here just say easyloading.show, and the status could be please wait. Okay, first of all, now we need to retrieve the email and password from the text form field. So let me retrieve that. Final email, that should be email controller.text, and password, that will be password controller.text. And now let's write a try catch block. So I'm not provide the catch block like this one. Instead, let me write on, and now I will use a Firebase class, an exception class, especially that occurs for Firebase auth or authentication, and that will be Firebase auth exception. And now I will catch. So in this way, I will only catch the error that is regarding Firebase authentication. Now, once we have the error, we can actually retrieve the information from this error object or exception object, and we can show the information in the error or error message string over here. So let me complete this first. So here we need to actually dismiss the easy loading, and then we should call the set state, and inside the set state we will have our new error message, and that will be simply error dot message, and definitely that will not null. Okay, now let's focus on the try block, and here we will actually call the auth service login admin method. So simply auth service or auth credential, I don't know, the file name or class name is auth service, and then login admin, provide the email, provide the password, and we know that our login admin is a future method, so we should use await here, and our login admin method returns a boolean. Let's take this boolean, so final status. Okay, so now if the status is true, then we should actually go to the dashboard page. We should not be in the login page forever, and if it is not true, then the exception will be thrown. And if you see carefully that if this line executes perfectly, we will always have the status with the value true, because there is no way that login admin can return false. Just like I told you that this login admin will, if anything goes wrong with this method, the exception will be called, and we will catch the exception over here. And if everything goes right with this method, then that time we get a credential, then we get the user, and always we get a true as a login return value from this method. Okay, we can actually use this boolean value later, because there will be some bug and there will be some issues with this login procedure, and we will talk about that in the upcoming lectures. But from here we should actually dismiss, after this line we should actually dismiss the easy loading as well, and then we should go to the dashboard page by simply calling the context.go named and just pass the dashboard page dot route name. Okay, and since this if you go to the main.dart file, and if you go to this route list, this to go route or route objects is at the same level. So if we go from login page to dashboard page, this login page will be removed, so there will be no trace to login page, so that we can go back to the login page by pressing the back button or so. Okay, so now it's time to check or restart our application, and we will provide the email address that we created in the Firebase authentication console, and then we'll provide the password, and we will click this login admin button, and let's see what happens. So let's restart this application. I think the app has been restarted. Now let me provide the email address, and that is admin@gmail.com, and the password is 12345, or maybe let me just provide a wrong password. We know that the password is 126, but I just provided 12345, and let me just hit this login as admin button, and let's see whether we get any error messages or not. So login as admin, and you see an internal error. Okay, it says something horrible because invalid login credentials, something like that. So the problem is this message we need to, okay, I don't think the internal error has occurred, so exception definitely happened, and we are not actually expecting this kind of error message. I was expecting something like you have the password is invalid or something like that, but this is something else. It says an internal error has occurred, invalid login credential. Okay, invalid. Of course it is invalid, but I actually expected more detailed messages. And if it is the case, then we need to actually change the message, because these are very technical message and user may not understand this kind of message. So, and it should not happen, because I don't know whether Firebase has upgraded the authentication service or upgraded these APIs or not, because before we actually wouldn't get this type of error messages, and that messages were very specific. But I don't know, maybe I'm having a bad luck here. So let me just provide the good credential, that means the actual password. And if I now press the login as admin button, and you see that I am at the dashboard page. So now we are successfully logged into this system. And now if I press hot restart again, now you see that our app has been restarted and we are not at the login page, we are at the dashboard page, because this time our current user actually returned a valid user object. And one thing to remember, that this session, this login session, is not actually maintained at the cloud. It is actually maintained on device. And if you somehow go to the app settings and go to this app and clear the data or clear the cache, then you will see that after that, if you launch this application, and you will, that time you will see that you will be redirected to the login page once again. So this session is actually maintained in the device, maybe in the database table or in a shared preference. So Firebase have the offline capabilities. Firebase also installs the local database, and we'll actually learn that when we will deal with the database thing. But you should remember that the Firebase authentication login session is maintained locally, not in the cloud. So don't expect that you have logged in this device, and now if we try to use this app in another device, and don't expect that you will be using that app directly without authentication. If you use another device, then you must have to provide the credential once again.